Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the internet, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here in Hollywood, California. I am, of course, your host, John Campea. It's an honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you guys joining us to talk about our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news, a little bit of television in here and there. And sitting right beside me, equally as happy about the Patriots going back to the Super Bowl with me, Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, your voice must be hoarse from all your cheering from the Patriots going to the Super Bowl again.
My voice is hoarse, but it's not for cheering for the Patriots, John. Actually, those two games yesterday, we all won.
Oh,
all football fans
all
won yesterday.
Sports fans, nay, humanity won yesterday. And speaking of big wins for humanity, we got Ashley Whalen over here. Ashley's joining us here today. Ashley, how you doing?
I'm great, thank you.
How was your weekend?
It was awesome. I saw both Fyre Fest movies and Into the Spider-Verse, and I had a weekend full of movies, so it was great.
I also had a fabulous weekend. Me and a few people, we also went back to go watch Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse again. Always a good time.
Done.
An incredible UFC on Saturday night. It was a great, the first UFC on ESPN, and then Sunday. Yeah, you know what? And let me say this quick, and then we'll get into the movie stuff, guys. But you guys know I'm a sports guy, so just indulge me for a second. I loved all four of these teams. Clearly, I'm a Patriots guy, but I love the brand of football the Chiefs play. I love the brand of football the LA Rams play. Who does not love Drew Brees and all that kind of stuff? But I will tell you what, even though I was leaning for the Rams, sure, because I'm in LA.
Right, me too.
And obviously I was heavily leaning for the Patriots. For the Patriots. I got to say this. I hate the overtime rules in the NFL. I felt horrible. I'm thrilled that the Pats won, but I felt horrible that whoever wins the toss wins the game. And I felt bad about that. But I felt, even though I was leaning for the Rams, I felt so bad for the Saints, who literally got screw jobbed. For any of you familiar with WWE and the Montreal screw job between Bret the Hitman Hart and Shawn Michaels, it was screw job 2.0. It was a pass interference, it was an unnecessary roughness, and it was a helmet-to-helmet contact. They called none of them. If they had called any of them, game's over. Saints go to the Super Bowl, and they got jobbed. They got screwed. And I was cheering for LA, but I'm like, oh, man, I feel bad for the Saints. I feel so bad for the Saints. They got totally screwed out of that game.
I tweeted a camera angle that you can see it. I mean, I'm sure it's going to get played a million times, that shows all three of those penalties clear as day right into the camera.
And the NFL called the coach. They called the Saints coach and said to him straight up, yep, we blew the call. Sorry. But what are they supposed to do about it at that point? I just felt so bad about it. Anyway, guys, let's get on to some movie stuff. I could talk sports all day, but let's get on to some movie stuff here. Now, before we get into our main topics, there's a little thing off the top I want to talk about here, Robert.
Uh-oh.
I got to bring this up. Okay, so this weekend, I do a couple of open mics from home, and somebody brings up, John, did you hear the news? The news. That New Mutants is going to be delayed again, and it looks like it's going to go straight to Hulu. And as soon as somebody said that online, I put my face in my hand, and I'm like, I can't believe this is actually getting around. Here's the scoop. This is what's going on. This is just an illustration of why the online movie news sphere is broken right now, all right? So here's the thing. There's a website called Heroic Hollywood. It's got a decent following. And they put out this headline that says, now granted, to their credit, they at least say rumor at first, but the fact that they're running this headline, we'll get to this in a second. New Mutants could be delayed again. Possible Hulu release. Wow.
It's big news.
Heroic Hollywood is saying that. Wow. So, since Heroic Hollywood is saying it, other major websites start saying the New Mutants rumored to be delayed again, possibly released on Hulu. And then because now there's a couple of sites running it. Another site was Screen Rant. Oh my God, how much to crap has Screen Rant gone since Vic Holterman left? Vic Holterman was the guy who founded Screen Rant, and he ran a great tight ship, and he sold it off and is retired now and enjoying himself. And that site used to be one of the best. But anyway, New Mutants reportedly delayed again with possible release. Okay, so now you've got all these sites running this headline. New Mutants delayed again, possibly going to a Hulu release, blah, 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 blah. One of the things that I always tell you guys, whether it comes from me, whether it comes from any other website, whether it comes from any other podcast, what I always tell you is follow it back to the source. What's the source? Where did Heroic Hollywood get this information? And quite often, you can't reveal your sources. I get that. That's understandable. But look into it. Where are they getting this? Where did Heroic Hollywood get that we were going to get that New Mutants was delayed again and that it's looking at doing a Hulu release? Where did it come from? Did it come from the Hollywood Reporter? Did it come from the heads of one of the studios? Did it come from a reliable source that they have trusted over the years to give them information, but they just can't reveal them, which is perfectly fine? Nope. Here's where that story came from. A guy named Scott Betchel writes on Twitter. Now, if you don't know who this Scott guy is, Bechtel, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it. And if you're thinking to yourself, I don't know who this Scott guy is, nobody does. Let me read his tweet. Just heard a whisper through this is where all these stories came from, this one tweet. Heard a whisper through the grapevine that New Mutants will be delayed again. Fox and Boone are really struggling, coming to terms on blah, blah, blah. It goes on. And then he goes on also to say on Twitter that they're looking at doing it on Hulu, right?
Right.
So then you're asking, okay, this is where they got their story from? Okay, so who is this guy? I'll tell you who Scott is. Scott is just a good movie fan, like you and me, who has a little podcast. He has about 200 followers on Twitter. He's about 100 followers on Facebook. So I'm guessing about 100 to 200 people listen to his podcast. He does not do this professionally. He's a movie fan who does this as a hobby. And by the way, I got nothing wrong with it. If a guy who running on his own site says, oh, hey, I heard something, and says it on his own site, nothing wrong with that. Says it on their own Twitter, there's nothing wrong with that. I don't blame Scott at all. But let me get this straight. Movie news websites. Some guy with about 100 listeners on his podcast who does this for a hobby gets on Twitter, of which he has about 200 followers on Twitter, and says, oh, I heard this. And you run that? That's your source? That's running headlines? So there's no wonder there is constantly confusion amongst the movie news fan circles because you got BS like this happening. And by the way, you know who is most flabbergasted by the fact that all these headlines are being run? Scott is most flabbergasted by this because Scott put out the greatest tweet in history. Scott gets on, dear websites using my tweets for articles. While flattered that you're trying to use my position as a host on a podcast to make me sound credible, said podcast once had a contest for getting our 69th like on Facebook because 69. And so that is the greatest tweet I've read all week. That is the great. So even he was, and you know what, Rob, it reminds me of the time when I was the first guy to let everybody know, hey guys, Ben Affleck's done as Batman. But I remember I brought it up on my show, but I specifically said on my show, now listen guys, this is just me. I'm one guy saying this. For any of you out there who have your other sites and whatever, don't run this. I said it specifically, Rob. I said, do not run this as headlines. Don't link back to this. Don't run a story for this because I'm just one guy saying this is what I've been told by my sources. But I'm not running it as a headline. I didn't put it in the title of my video. I didn't do any of that. And I said, please don't run this as headlines. The next day, everywhere. Everybody's running it as a story, even though they couldn't confirm it. And I'm driving to work the next day, listening to ESPN as I always do, and they're talking about it on ESPN. So I mean, it's like that. So I can totally get where Scott is coming from on this. Even he was saying, guys, what? He's looking at all this people quoting him as this headline source, and even Scott's looking at them going, what the hell are you guys doing? And it's just awful. Now, I appreciate that some of them put the word rumor in their thing, but come on, guys. You have a fan base that expect when you run with something, at least run with something that's got a little possibility. And look, by the way, we know that there's a lot of drama surrounding the Hulu stuff. And who's to say that Scott's source isn't accurate? Who's to say?
Right, sure.
Of course there's a possibility, but you can't just go, I'll find anybody with 6 Twitter followers who says anything and I'm going to run with that as a headline. It's just, what this hurts the movie online fan community because it constantly causes confusion and whatever. And again, I'm not saying that it couldn't possibly be true. Of course it's possible it could be true. But it's just this kind of stuff that has always driven me nuts as a member of this particular community.
Well, I'm with you 100% on that. I mean, having worked in the industry for a long time, you can tell when things are true and when things are not true. And I think our community, the online movie community, is very much isolated from the industry itself. We know people that work in the industry, but many of these bloggers don't even live in LA. They don't.
Yeah.
They hear from somebody who maybe heard from somebody who heard from somebody else, and it's already a game of telephone.
And a lot of times I heard from somebody who heard from somebody who read it on Reddit.
Yeah, or something like that. I mean, and everybody's so quick to jump on these things, and it's always. I've always been bemused by it, quite frankly. I mean, you listen. I've heard lots of things that I'm actually involved in or aware of, and people will tell me something about it, and I get embarrassed when I have to go, that's not accurate. And you step in because you don't want to correct anybody and seem like a dick. But when there's misinformation, even people that I know, reputable people that I believe in and trust, even they sometimes have information that just isn't true. And when you have to step in and correct them, I feel bad about it, but much less bloggers in the larger blogosphere. I mean, let me ask you, John, how do you think the online film community could police itself better?
It's up to each individual outlet to say we've got a certain standard of what stuff we'll talk about. And look, and here's the thing. Let me be very clear here. I don't blame Scott.
Right,
the guy
sure.
He's got a small circle, and he feels he needs to be allowed in his own small circle just to share what his experiences are.
Yep.
And he shared with his circle, hey, just I heard this. I don't know if it's true or not, but I just sharing with his circle. And I feel really bad for him because what happened is you get these sites start running that as headlines, and now he's becoming a target for all these people who never heard of Scott, and they're getting on his Twitter now. Prove it. Prove what you said, and blah, blah. And he's like, hold on, guys. Like, I was just talking on my podcast and talking about an experience I had. I didn't ask these guys to run headlines or anything like that, and I feel really bad for the dude. I really do. Because I looked at his Twitter this morning. It's like he's having to defend himself.
Yeah.
He's like, dude, I did not ask for this attention. I did not ask for this. And I feel bad for the dude. He just was sharing his experience with his circle. Other people took it because they were desperate for a headline, I guess, ran it as a headline. And it's just something. And look, let's be clear. Even the best in this business are guilty of that from time to time.
Of course.
I'm sure if I went through all my headline history with a fine-tooth comb, I bet you I will come up with examples that I did it myself. It is just something we as individual people and individual bodies in this community, we need to keep an eye on ourselves.
Right.
And we just need to double check ourselves because we're all guilty. And I don't need to particularly slam Screen Rant or Heroic or anybody because, again, I think everybody is guilty of this. It's another example of something that we, this guy included, need to keep an eye on of ourselves when we're doing this stuff. Anyway.
I agree.
All right, guys, let's get on to our main topics of the day. And how do we get our main topics here on this show? Well, it's really rather simple. You guys select the main topics by emailing your topics and questions to me anytime, 24/7, to john@thejohncampeashow.com. That's john@thejohncampeashow.com. Make sure you guys put the word topic in the subject line. And as always, guys, keep those emails to 90 words or less. Any longer, and I can't even fit them on the screen even if I wanted to use them. So I appreciate these giant thesis papers I'm getting from a lot of you guys sometimes, but I can't use those. So please, 90 words or less. All right. With that out of the way, what's our first email today, Ashley?
All right. The first one of the day is from T. Hayes. He says, good morning, John and Rob. I hope you had an excellent weekend.
Excellent.
Speaking of the weekend, we had a new Shazam trailer this weekend. Even though there wasn't a ton of new footage, I still loved it. I felt that it still had the big feel to it that I am looking forward to. And I love the new footage of the convenience store and shopping for a secret lair. What were your thoughts? What do you think, Robert? Did you see this?
Yes, and I'm with Mr. Hayes. It was a TV spot, so it wasn't a full-on trailer.
Yeah, it was about a little under a minute, I think.
Yeah, and it's just delightful is the word that comes to mind. I mean, the idea of people have said this movie is big, but in the superhero realm. Not like big, huge, but big like the
Tom
movie
Hanks
Big.
is big, yeah.
Tom Hanks is big. Robert Loggia, dancing on the piano at Toys or at FAO Schwartz. It's exactly what I want. I mean, they're touching on the whole thing about the shopping for the lair, and you got to see Dr. Sivana and Flash, Shazam mixing it up.
Yes.
And the fight looks vaguely Man of Steel-esque. I mean, are they going to go at it and start throwing each other through buildings? I mean, I'm like, wow, so it could go from big to big.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm excited, man. What do you think?
There were a couple of big takeaways I had. One, and I'm so glad you brought that up, feature more Mark Strong.
Oh, yeah.
Mark Strong is a stud. I mean, seriously, whenever he's in anything, no matter how good or how bad, he brings a gravity. I'm not saying gravitas. Gravity. He brings a gravity whenever he's on screen. There's something about him, whether he's playing Sherlock Holmes' nemesis or whether he's playing one of the Kingsmen or whether he's a good guy in this or a villain in that. He is a beast. I love Mark Strong. And to feature a little bit more of him and his character in there, showing that it's not just big,
Right.
it's also a comic book movie. I love that. Two scenes really got me a lot, which is why Zachary Levi was the perfect guy to cast in this role. I just love it when he's in that grocery store. Yes, where is your finest beer? He's a 12-year-old kid, and he does it just like a 12-year-old kid. But then again, hearkening back to Big, that scene with the real estate agent.
Oh,
A lair? Yeah, like overlooking what I love that scene. I thought that was wonderful. But that shot right at the beginning, which I thought, forget the Shazam nature of it, just the comic book epic feel. Billy jumping off a building and then in midair jumping off a building yelling Shazam. The lightning strikes, transforms into Shazam. It was a great shot. Beautiful shot. I love this trailer. I thought it was great.
I love that shot too, and I think there's who doesn't imagine themselves when we're kids? Don't we all at one point imagine ourselves as superheroes?
Yeah, sure. As kids, yeah, that's exactly what
I
happened.
mean, it's
as kids.
primal, and girls and boys, man. And I think this taps into, and yes, me as a middle-aged man, I too I fancy myself part of the Justice League pretty much every morning. But I think that this is going to tap into that, and everybody's going to go see this movie. I mean, we were talking about billion-dollar movies. After that trailer, I was like, maybe we have another contender.
I still think
another contender for the $1 billion club.
I still think the one thing that's going to hold, and I think Shazam can be a hit. The one thing I still think is going to hold it back is that the big advantage that Spider-Man, Black Panther, even Aquaman had is all three of those movies, their characters were introduced first.
It's true.
In other team-up movies, and then to establish some recognizability. But Shazam doesn't have that advantage. So I still don't know that Shazam can make $1 billion. Then again, I didn't think Venom would make $800 million, and I didn't think Aquaman would make $1 billion either. But it doesn't have that advantage that those other ones had. But this could be a much bigger hit than we were thinking.
I agree.
But a lot will depend on the word of mouth, though, obviously.
And the movie has to be good.
Yeah.
I mean, it has to deliver. We've seen maybe 2 minutes of footage.
Yeah.
And it looks promising to me.
They've positioned themselves for success. And that's exciting.
Absolutely.
Did you have a chance to see this trailer, Ashley?
No, but now I'm very curious.
Yeah, because it just dropped yesterday. It just dropped yesterday, but I know a lot of people are looking forward to this. All right, let's move on. What's next?
Cool. Next is Robert Mullins. He says, "You're not alone in your appreciation for the 2016 Ghostbusters. I enjoyed it too, although I didn't love it or anything like that. It was decent enough. Anyway, I wanted to know your thoughts on the recent Leslie Jones comment slamming the new Ghostbusters coming out. Do you think she was justified or do you think she was out of line? Thanks, and bring on the filthy." What do you think, John?
Oh, boy. Okay, so buckle up. First of all, let me set the context for this. The 2016 Ghostbusters is coming out. It's coming out. It hadn't yet come out. And besides the fact that it was maybe the worst first trailer in history for a movie. Remember that when it was just all referencing the original Ghostbusters?
Oh, yeah.
And it turned everybody off. I was excited for this movie because I thought, first of all, I think Paul Feig is a really good director. And by the way, his movie, A Simple Favor from 2018, brilliant. I'm telling you guys, if you have not seen that movie yet, check out A Simple Favor. It is wonderful. Anyway, you had Paul Feig directing it. You had this brilliant cast, one of which is Leslie Jones, of just wonderfully brilliant comedic talents in there. And I was excited for it. Now, I went to go see the movie, and I liked it. I thought it was funny. I also had some major problems with it, but overall, I thought it was an entertaining movie. I had a good amount of laughs in it personally. Did it even come close to the quality of the original Ghostbusters? No, of course not, but I don't think anybody was expecting that. But I appreciate it. And I'll tell you what, I think Leslie Jones is a comedic goldmine. I love her on SNL. And I really liked her in Ghostbusters. I enjoyed her performance in Ghostbusters. I am a fan of Leslie Jones, all right? So that's to set the context here. Of course, you guys know that last week it was announced that Jason Reitman, son of Ivan Reitman and a world-class director in his own right, was going to come and direct a new Ghostbusters series, getting back to the original film's continuity. The 2016 was a reboot. It kind of did away with the old Ghostbusters. It was a reboot. Now they're going to kind of reboot again, but by getting back to the original timeline, right? Jason Reitman himself has gotten on Twitter and social media, talked about his appreciation for the 2016 film. He really likes that movie, blah, blah, blah. Well, Leslie Jones gets on social media, and she's not happy about it, Robert.
No, I read this.
And she put out this. Check this out. Leslie Jones talked about this. Does she say, you know what, congrats to Jason Reitman for this new adventure. I'm honored to be a part of this franchise and the history now. No, this is what Leslie Jones says. So insulting. Like, fuck us. We didn't count. It's like something Trump would do. Trump voice, gonna redo Ghostbusters. Better with men. It will be huge. Those women ain't Ghostbusters. Ugh, so annoying. Such a dick move. And I don't give a fuck. I'm saying something. All right. So let me just read that top line again. So insulting. So insulting. Like, fuck us. We didn't count. All right. Here's the thing. I get particularly disappointed. Like, I'll get annoyed when somebody, some celebrity or somebody big in the movie industry does something dumb. But I get particularly disappointed and annoyed when it's somebody I respect. And it's somebody who I consider myself a fan of. And it's somebody whose work I appreciate. And now look, remember this too. Make no mistake about it. There will be some morons, stick your head in the sand deniers on this. The amount of sexist and racist garbage Leslie Jones had to deal with when that first thing came out. I remember reading through the tweets.
Oh, it was horrific.
That she ultimately had to just shut her Twitter down and get off Twitter for a while.
Yes.
It was disgusting. It's one of those moments that you just are a little bit embarrassed to be a part of the human race. The amount of abuse she took at that point was unforgivable. It was unforgivable. And so one can a little bit, kind of like a villain origin in a comic book movie, you can kind of understand how she became a little bit jaded.
Right.
And a little bit upset and a little bit annoyed about the whole thing. I get it. So let me just say that all up front, okay? But there is no excuse, Robert. There is no excuse for this entitled actor to get on here and complain about what she's entitled to. I'm owed. This is insulting because you can't feel insulted unless you think you are owed and you think you're entitled. Leslie Jones gets on social media and acts like she's entitled, she is owed. I am Ghostbusters now. That you take this away from me. Never mind the fact that you scrapped the other timeline to make my movie. How dare you scrap my timeline to make another movie? That's called hypocrisy. That's called hypocrisy right there. And by the way, newsflash, Leslie Jones, your movie flopped. This isn't like Ghostbusters came out in 2016 and made $750 million, and everybody's going to stand around and go, whoa, wait a minute, they're not going to make a sequel to that? I liked your movie. I gave your movie a positive review, but the reality is your movie flopped and cost the studio tens, if not $100 million losses. That's the scenario here, Leslie. For you to come out here and say, oh, this is an insult to me. Newsflash. This ain't you, and this ain't the universe, okay? This isn't about you, Leslie. Nobody's insulting you. Nobody is giving you a hard time. Nobody is saying you don't count. Newsflash. You're an actor. Know your place. More actors need to know their place. You are a hired piece of labor to come in and perform a job that you are uniquely skilled to do and that only you can do to a certain degree, but that doesn't make the movie yours. And it doesn't mean the universe owes you. And it doesn't mean the studio owes you. You know what you're owed? You're owed a paycheck. You're owed a paycheck. And a good paycheck. And you got that paycheck. But that didn't suddenly make this property belong to you. You made a movie. They took a risk on it. They tried something different. And I applaud it, and I like the results. But that didn't mean suddenly the universe became indebted to you and that you were owed something and this franchise belongs to you. Not at all. Your movie flopped. So what is the studio supposed to do? Well, let's make another flop. know they've got a valuable IP in Ghostbusters. They know they don't want to abandon the Ghostbusters IP, but they recognize, hey, we rolled the dice. We took a gamble to try something a little bit different. We got some ridiculously talented people involved, including both behind the camera and in front of the director, in front of the camera. And it didn't work. We failed. We lost money. The film flopped. Okay, well, let's try something different. Let's try going back to the original kind of stuff and try that. And then for an actor to come out and say, this is insulting to me, just makes me want to go, especially, and I wouldn't be nearly as bothered by this if I wasn't a fan and I didn't appreciate her work so much, but I do, and it just bothers me when I see smart people doing stupid things, and this is stupid, and it makes all performers and actors, and by association, everybody, all the talented people who made that film with her, it makes them look like they're petty and everything too, because she said something this dumb. Anyway, I'm a little bit bothered by this. Robert, you hear all this. What's your response?
First of all, dude, that was an epic rant. Let me just say, I'm proud to be sitting next to you, and I too am a huge fan of Leslie Jones.
She's hilarious.
I still dream. Leslie Jones is also a huge Game of Thrones fan.
Yes, she is.
And whenever I see her, like she sits down with somebody to watch Game of Thrones, I was hoping that HBO would have a Leslie Jones hosted Game of Thrones event at Madison Square Garden, where they would show the first 90-minute episode or however long it is of this 8th season, and Leslie Jones would host, and we'd all watch it, and then she would come out and do. I just want to hear what she thinks. Like I want to hear, but yes. So to me, I too thought this was really in poor taste. I mean, look, I worked on Superman Returns. I watched people work on that movie for 2 years, and no one put more into that movie than Brandon Routh himself, who played Clark Kent and Superman. And that would be like him going on Twitter or something when Man of Steel was released and complain that I spent 2 years of my life and my hopes and dreams put in this movie, and he never would do something like that. I don't think any actor would do something like that, and it really is. Ivan Reitman, Jason Reitman's father, started the Ghostbusters franchise.
Yes.
I mean, they originated that. I do think that this is in poor form. But, on the other hand, I would just speak, Leslie Jones is a comedian. And the only thing I would say is maybe, I don't doubt that she would be upset because of what she had to put up with, as you brought up. Horrific amounts of online abuse when
unforgivable.
Not just her, but everybody.
Stuff,
all the actresses in the new Ghostbusters movie. That was an incredible comedic collection of some of the most deft comedians we have working in film and television today.
Yes,
great group, and they all had to put up with horrible abuse for being in a movie that's a comedy that they're trying to bring back a moribund franchise. We hadn't seen a movie since 1989. They bring it back, and everybody screams and yells at them. But this, maybe what she was saying had a tinge of sarcasm.
Dude, I don't know. Like let's bring up that quote again. I first of all, I hope you're right because I am a fan of this. Bring up that quote again, Jonathan. So, but because when you get down to the bottom of the quote, and it's like I don't give a fuck. I'm saying something. Like she's like, this isn't. I didn't take anything from this that was her in jest.
Right,
and
I know
what she should have said because I'm sorry. Did I miss? Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. I must have missed Rick Moranis' tweet when they announced the 2016 Ghostbusters. Rick Moranis saying, "This is an insult to me. Do I not count? Do my films not matter?" No, of course he didn't do that. What Leslie should have done is she wanted to get on Twitter. She should have gone on and said, hey, congratulations, Jason Reitman. I'm so thrilled to be a part of the long-term legacy of the Ghostbusters franchise and blah, blah. Can't wait to see what you do next. That would have been the classic. This thing coming out, tearing apart these people. Now Jason Reitman, poor Jason Reitman, is like, this is my legacy. My dad created Ghostbusters. And again, one of the parts that really gets me is the hypocrisy of this. Because to do the 2016 Ghostbusters meant you had to go, okay, we are going to take the existing Ghostbusters and set it aside, which was fine. They were rolling the dice. They wanted to try something. I respect that. And I like the results. But to make that Ghostbusters, you say, we're going to take the other form of Ghostbusters, package it up, and push it aside for now, and do this new. For you now to complain that your version of Ghostbusters is now also getting packaged up, put aside for now, maybe permanently, maybe not, so they can do another thing with Ghostbusters. To complain about that is hypocrisy. And and again, so you got this thing dripping with entitlement, dripping with it's all about them, and dripping with a hypocrisy, because I didn't hear you complaining that, no, we shouldn't make this 2016 Ghostbusters because it means insulting those other Ghostbusters. Didn't hear you say that then, so why is it the case now? And again, I just want to reaffirm one more time, I wouldn't be nearly as upset about this if it wasn't coming from somebody that I think that I'm really entertained by. And I'm really entertained by Leslie Jones. I think she's hilarious, but I just, there's no excusing this. And I think she's going to regret this. Because, by the way, Robert, here's the thing. Let's say I am a big Hollywood, big-time producer, right? You would know more about this than me. But let's say I'm a big Hollywood producer. Am I ever going to want to work with Leslie Jones? Because is she talented? Yes. But oh my God, if I ever do something with my property that she doesn't like and she worked on it with me once, is she going to get online and start tearing apart whatever I'm doing next? I don't know that I want to take that risk. I don't, like, you are much more of a filmmaker than I ever will be. Like, so would something like this public outburst against something, a studio and a property she has worked with, would this give you pause to work with her in the future? Or maybe no, maybe I'm
no. I've had this experience. I worked on a show that I was directing for HBO and Cinemax called Femme Fatales. And I cast an actress in a role. Not only did I cast her in a role, I brought her back for another episode. And I had put some footage of some of that show up in my director's reel. And her career took a turn, but she's developed a much bigger following doing other things. She wrote me a note saying she would appreciate it if I took down the footage of her from the show that I directed. And I'm like, wow, I brought this actress back for, now it was a show I can understand why she might not. It was a late night Skinamax HBO show, but I put my heart and soul into those episodes. And when she wrote me this letter saying she didn't appreciate me putting up footage that she was in, I'm like, I brought you back a second time. We brought your character back. I liked working with you so much that I brought you back again, and she like threw this back in my face.
But she didn't get on social media and publicize it to the world.
No, she didn't get it on, but she did send it. I mean, I don't remember if it was publicly, that message was publicly available. But what it really made me feel like, you know what? Well, I'll never work with her again ever. I don't care how big she gets. And I was like, that kind of stuff, you know, we're all working to build our careers.
Yes.
And when somebody throws something like that back in your face, you know what? That to me, that there goes a bridge that you'll never cross ever again, at least not with me on the other side waving at you, because that ain't going to happen.
All right. Well, we spent a lot of time on this topic, so let's go on to something happier. Let's do another topic. What's next, Ashley?
All right. Well, can I just say, though,
yes,
as a female in the industry and an actor in the industry, I'm gonna say what I think a lot of females are probably arguing with her point. I disagree with how she went about it and everything, but I don't know if she was saying it was insulting her personally. Maybe she was, but I think that as women right now are fighting an uphill battle towards equality in the industry, and this film was kind of a symbol, along with a couple other films coming out during this movement that's going on, and I feel that her feelings are coming from a place of, you know, this is a symbol. Everyone's excited. They're trying to show women in a badass position, flop or not. Like, it was a film that was showing women coming to an equal measure in the industry, that we can also be in the same roles as men. And then to immediately make another film and try to sweep it under the rug is, I think this film is a bigger symbol of what's going on in the industry, rather than just an actor being entitled and wanting she deserves a paycheck. You know, you're doing a job. I understand all that, but I think where she's coming from is the symbol, like the symbolism of this Ghostbusters film.
Sure, and I would appreciate that to a much bigger degree. We got a Captain Marvel movie coming. We have our second Wonder Woman movie coming. We have all these things. But where I have a problem with that comes from the point of the stuff she says in that social media made it sound like we're getting rid of you because you're women and because you're actresses. When the reality is they didn't get rid of Wonder Woman. Why? Because it was financially successful. They're going to do Captain Marvel. Why? Because they believe it can be financially successful. Sony, I think, should be applauded for the fact that they rolled the dice and did something so radically different by recasting, by doing a brand new Ghostbusters, but instead of saying it's an all-boys club, let's make it an all-female cast. And they tried it and they did it, and I think they should be applauded for that, and I actually like the results. But the word we keep seeing here is industry. As an industry, you got to be able to step back and say, okay, the movie lost that studio a lot of money.
Definitely, yeah.
And so we're going to make a choice. This is the same studio that chose to make the 2016 Ghostbusters in the first place. We now need to make a choice. Well, this didn't work for us, so we need to do something different. So we're going to bring in the legacy Jason Reitman. We're going to put it back into the timeline of the original Ghostbusters. And who's to say it's not going to be a half female cast or a half whatever? I mean, who's to say? We simply don't know. I'm sure it's not the original gang, Venkman and the boys, getting all back together again, since I don't even think Bill Murray even wants much to do with this project in the first place. But who's to say that that's not going to be there? Again, I would have a lot more sympathy. Actually, I would be not just more sympathetic, I would be raising my eyebrow with Leslie Jones had this movie made $550 million.
Right.
And it's like, wait a minute. Justify to me why you're scrapping this 2016 thing, because it had a bunch of people like it and it made money. You better give me a damn good reason why you're just throwing it up. But it lost them tons of money. Worldwide, this movie made $220 million. The losses probably were in excess of $100 million in losses. You can't make another one. You can't. You just simply can't. And I think Leslie Jones, as a professional in this industry, should not be trying to change the issue here and camouflage the issue by saying, this is about the fact that we're women and they don't want to make movies about women. This is the studio that made your movie in the first place. Of course they're interested in that. You cannot just brush under and make it an afterthought and just pick up the rub and sweep it under that the film lost the studio in excess of $100 million. That's not an afterthought. That's not a small detail. There is no way Sony could make another one. But Ghostbusters is a valuable, recognizable IP. You can't also just take the Ghostbusters IP and put it on the shelf. So what do? Do you make a sequel to the 2016 film that I liked, but that lost you $100 million? Or do you try something different and go legacy, bring in Jason Reitman, and go back to the original storyline? And I think what they did was a very reasonable, rational, financially sound decision, just like I thought they made that decision for the 2016 film originally. And it didn't work. And I think Leslie Jones, as a professional, has to be able to go, don't change the topic. Your movie flopped. Don't pretend this is about the fact that it had women in it. Sony made your movie in the first place. It's not like they don't want to make movies with women in it. They stepped on that ledge, they rolled the dice, and guess what? We got more movies coming that are increasing that movement. We are ending the agenda of keeping women out of big roles. We are starting to get rid of the agenda that keeps minority out of major roles. We are seeing that process start. It just concerns me that outbursts like this could hurt this movement we see moving towards ending the exclusion of women in big parts, ending the exclusion of minority in big parts. We're seeing some progress, but it's not always going to go one way.
Well, I hear both of your points too. I think you made a very, very valid point. But, again, this isn't show friends. It's show business. Mm-hmm. And I think the problem, I think this is a perfect example of we see a lot of this outrage culture. It's kind of like how the social sciences in colleges are being taken over by political agendas, and they're not looking at science when they should. And like you pointed out, this is really about money.
Yes.
Hollywood, look, for all of its inclusion, for all of its, if it didn't work, if Black Panther didn't make $700 million domestically and it didn't work, it would have been seen as a failure, and we wouldn't have been able to talk about the inclusion and the things. The fact that it worked is all that matters. The fact that it made money, nobody cares about your political agendas or anything when it comes to movies. They just care about the box office.
And if they lose.
And if they lose.
And that's
I mean, the fact that we get these movies that make money proves to marketing people who only can go by what's worked in the past. When something new works, they're like, oh, then you can go back and go, see, you were wrong all the time. The idea that a movie headlined by minorities, at least in the United States, can make that much money proves that you can no longer say, well, these movies traditionally haven't made a lot of money. That's wrong now. You had a huge explanation of that and why it was wrong. We saw that. Now we're going to see more movies like that. That's all that matters. Once something makes money, that's all anybody cares about.
You can't do female lead superhero movies that won't make money. Wonder Woman. You can't do minority-led superhero movies that won't make money. Black Panther.
You can't make movies with an all-Asian cast.
Oh, yeah.
Crazy Rich Asians.
Crazy Rich Asians.
I mean, all of those ideas have been shattered. They have been shattered. They're not real. You just have to find the right material and the right actors and the right filmmaking team and make great films. And all of those, and we're seeing them. We are seeing these things shattered weekly, monthly, yearly. Look at the box office for the last 2 years and what has changed.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great. We live in a world now where the more inclusion, and is it done? No.
We have a
long
way to go.
But it's better now than it's ever been at that level.
Yeah, I agree. And look, and again, let me say this too. It's a little bit like a supervillain origin story when you look at the unexcusable abuse that the whole cast of Ghostbusters took at the time.
It was disgusting.
Including Leslie Jones. But again, I just think in this particular instance, you got to gauge the context, understand what the real issues are, and not pretend that the issue is something else. Sony didn't scrap the 2016 franchise because they didn't want to work with women in lead roles. Clearly they didn't. They wanted that movie to make money. They wanted to do all that kind of stuff. But anyway, it is what it is, and I think it's a really unfortunate situation. Anyway, we spent about a half hour on this topic. So
fascinating.
It was important.
It is an important one. I'm sure the discussion's not over, as a matter of fact. All right.
I can guarantee that, Mr. Mansplainer. What's up?
I am in agreement with you guys, though. Just to be clear, she should have kept that maybe just to her friend group and not put it on Twitter.
Or sent a private email to somebody saying, "Hey, what the hell?"
You didn't need to say that out loud.
No, I agree.
All right, from Darian Lamont. What's good, Giovanni? Dude, I loved Bumblebee. It was my favorite movie of December movies. I saw on Twitter today that they're going to make a sequel. I'm a little surprised since it didn't do all that great money-wise. Do you think they'll actually make a sequel, and are you surprised they're even thinking about it? Robert, what do you think? Sequel?
Well, on Twitter, again, addressing this issue, I have not seen. Look, I thought Bumblebee was a wonderful movie.
It was surprisingly good.
I mean, it harked back. One of the things about the first Transformers, that story of a boy in his car, that had that kind of Amblin sensibility. Spielberg was a producer on it. It felt sort of Spielbergian, even though it was a little crass in its portrayal of Megan Fox. But there was a sweetness to Bumblebee, and yet it was still a kick-ass Transformers movie. And I thought it struck that incredible balance. And Travis Knight, his Leica Productions and Kubo and the Two Strings, and they found the perfect director. That franchise we've only ever seen Michael Bay's take on it. And I think Travis Knight completely turned that franchise around. Now you can go in any direction. Yeah. And the tone can be now very, very different. It was a personal story as opposed to being some apocalyptic, world-destroying, let's destroy Chicago, let's destroy Hong Kong. This was not that. And I'm excited if they make another one. I just haven't seen verification that they are.
Yeah, no, I think it was Deadline that actually wrote the
Deadline.
thing. Yeah, they wrote that's what's happened. They're looking at, there was no confirmations, not saying this is definitely a thing. They're looking at, one of the things they're looking at is doing an Optimus and Bumblebee movie as a sequel. They were looking at some other Transformers figures, but I don't know who else you could do a solo movie about other than Optimus or Bumblebee. I think a sequel is the way to go. And by the way, Bumblebee, very quietly, like I've made the argument that I think Paramount made Bumblebee knowing this movie could not break even. That they knew they were so far in the hole with the audience because of how crappy the Transformers movies have been, that they just probably understood we can't make money with this movie, but let's rehabilitate the image of it. Guess what? They're now profitable. This movie's made well over $400 million now. It is now in the profitable range. Bumblebee made money. And I think the people at Hasbro and the people at Paramount have got to be going, whoa, we weren't expecting that. We were expecting to take a little bit of loss because we had some rehabilitation to do with the image of the property. But we actually made money, and the critics loved it, and the fans loved it. You got to be looking at all this. Look, I thought for a long time that this Bumblebee movie was going to be the last hurrah for the Transformers franchise till about 10 years later when they reboot the thing. But now they got to be looking at this. We made something quality. We brought in, look what happens when you bring in a good director. Look what happens. And I think this would be exciting if it moves forward.
And you can't deny that a movie like this is going to have a lot of replayability, rewatchability in the secondary market. Once it's on streaming and once it's available on physical media, people are going to be discovering this movie. This is a movie parents can give to their kids and not have a problem with them watching it the same way they might have with Michael Bay's Transformers films. So in terms of, it's not just rehabilitation for the film franchise, it's rehabilitation for the toy franchise, for the cartoons, for the animated series they'll do. I mean, this will kick off the new wave of Transformers interest, I think, for the next 5 to 10 years.
And by the way, it's also gifts kids can give their parents. I took my mom to see 2 movies when I went home for Christmas. Took her to see Aquaman, which she thought was meh. She loved Bumblebee. My mom loved Bumblebee. So, I mean, there's something about that, too. All right, what's next?
All right, this one is from Wallace McGovern. He says, so what the hell is going on with Gambit? I know they were trying to make it for years, but I thought it was pretty much dead. Now I'm reading that they might still make the movie and that Shannon Tatum may be directing it himself. What? Since when is Tatum a director? How can they even still make it with the merger coming? What's happening? I'm so confused. John, what's happening?
Well, Wallace, you are basically saying what a lot of us say. Like, what the hell is going on? It was 4 years ago. 4 years ago. That Channing Tatum took to the stage at Comic-Con with the rest of the Fox X-Men universe people as he was playing Gambit. He was going to be Gambit, and nothing. What's really funny is we talked about this story the other week where X-Force, the creator of X-Force, Rob Liefeld, basically got on Twitter and confirmed for everybody the X-Force movie is dead. Within that story was also that Gambit was also dead. Because the only way a Gambit movie could happen is if it went into production within the next 2 months. After the next 2 months, that's the cutoff point because then the merger is basically going to be going through and you can't get any new projects off the ground. If they could get it off the ground, record it, and shooting, then they're fine. They can finish it out. But, well, they're nowhere near that, so the Gambit movie's dead.
Right.
Well, then out of nowhere, Deadline comes out, and here, check this. This is specifically what Deadline had to write. He, talking about Channing Tatum, has been trying to get going the X-Men spinoff Gambit. He has long been slotted to play the charming card-throwing mutant, and buzz has been that he might direct the film after several other filmmakers have been in and out. But there is no start date at this point, and it's still being worked on. We'll tell you more when we hear it. So they have had a revolving door of directors coming in and out to possibly do Gambit. Now, Channing Tatum has worked with Soderbergh very closely a couple times. I think Channing was looking to direct something at one point. But as far as I know, Channing Tatum has never directed anything. And if this feels a little bit like desperation at this point, where it's like, we cannot get a director on board. The clock is ticking. I want this movie done. I want to be Gambit. Screw it. I'll direct it myself. Like, I don't know if that's the case here. Look, I don't believe that we're going to see this Gambit movie. I don't believe it. I would like to. I'm on board with seeing it, but I don't believe we're going to see it at this point. If they were to get around to doing it with Channing Tatum directing it, a guy who's never directed anything, I don't know. I'd be a little hesitant about that. What do you think, Robert?
Well, I think you just pointed out that he's worked a lot with Steven Soderbergh.
Yes.
And Soderbergh is his own director of photography and most now lately his own editor.
Yeah.
And if there's any film school to go to for Channing Tatum, it has been his work with Soderbergh. He's seen Soderbergh do so much work. They'd worked together, I think, on Logan Lucky was the last time they worked together.
By the way, wonderful little film.
Oh, I loved
Logan Lucky.
I did too. And so you've got Soderbergh in his camp, to help him out. So, and look what we got with Bradley Cooper. He was an actor who directed A Star Is Born. I mean, I don't necessarily think that actors shouldn't direct. I mean, it especially when they have the kind of mentorship that I'm sure Channing Tatum could get from Soderbergh. But I just don't see a Gambit movie happening before the merger, unless there's something going on that we don't know, unless they want to do something really quick. Because Gambit is not one of these giant world-destroying Apocalypse is not going to start leveling cities, I would imagine.
Right.
Like Bumblebee brought back the franchise down to earth. I
Probably
think
some more drama around the Thieves Guild or something like that.
And they shoot it Louisiana can play Louisiana, and if it's a smaller movie, I could see Logan. I could see Gambit being like Creed, a smaller film that's much more character based, that does something interesting with the mutants the same way the movie Logan did. Yeah. And if it's that way, maybe it's possible, but I just don't see it happening.
All
Not
right.
before the merger.
Let's move on. What's next?
Cool. Next is Nicholas Preston. I noticed that Green Book, I love this movie, by the way, won the PGA award the other night. With this and the fact that it also won Best Picture from the National Board of Review, do you think Green Book could be the hot pick going into the Oscars, or do you still think Roma and Star is Born are the ones to watch? I'm pulling for Green Book. Thanks. What do you think, Robert? Have you seen Green Book? Do you love it? Oscar winner?
Green Book, I just saw Green Book, and I think, it's a great film. There is a little bit of controversy with the story that it's based on, and the family of the gentleman portrayed in Green Book has said some of it is inaccurate. But again, it's a movie about the friendship between two men. And its historical accuracy notwithstanding, I mean, is that a great film? Is that something that people will like? I think it's the kind of movie that people do love and people do respond to. But Roma's a tough movie to beat because it's truly a virtuoso directorial accomplishment. And it's also a very, very personal film to Alfonso Cuarón. So I think Green Book's biggest competition is not A Star is Born, but Roma.
Here's the interesting thing. First of all, I thought Green Book was magnificent. I love that. And you know me, I don't give two squirts of piss about how historically accurate a movie is.
Right.
Guess what? Those are called documentaries. If you want a documentary, don't cry to me about this isn't accurate in Bohemian Rhapsody. I don't give a flying fuck about what's accurate in Bohemian Rhapsody. I went to see a movie. I didn't go for a history lesson. I didn't go for a documentary. I didn't go for a news report. I went to go watch a movie. I expect them in these movies to take liberties and blah, blah. It was the only question that people should be asking is the movie good? That should be the only question we ask. Is the movie good? Newsflash. Inglourious Bastards was not historically accurate.
No.
I know. Wait, that's how Hitler died? No, that's not how Hitler died. So I really don't care. All I know is that Green Book, I was moved by it. I thought it was powerful. You're right. It's about this bonded relationship that forms between these two men who come from completely different worlds. Ridiculous performance by Viggo Mortensen. Ridiculous performance by Mahershala Ali, who, by the way, what a streak he's on, right? Because he's got that right now. He's got True Detective Season 3, and he's got Alita Battle Angel coming out, which is looking better and better all the time. I think this movie's wonderful. Interesting little note here. Out of the 28 years that this top honor at the PGA has been given out, 20 times the winner of this award has gone on to win Best Picture at the Academy Awards. Now, that's not a lock. That's not a lock by any stretch of the imagination. But the fact that it won the National Board of Review, which also had a pretty good ratio of how many times their pick has actually gone on to win Best Picture. I'll tell you what, I have been saying that the top two horses to look at here are Roma and Star is Born with the momentum. I think I'm changing that. With the PGA award at this point, I'm now maybe thinking Green Book, if not the lead horse in this race, I think it's at least a three-way race at this point. And who knows? Maybe Black Klansman surprises us. Maybe I don't know. Maybe the favorite comes out and maybe a dark horse comes in, sneaks through, and actually crosses the finish line first. But history right now is a little bit pointing towards Green Book a bit. So it'll be interesting to see, or who knows? I mean, maybe a Bohemian Rhapsody. I don't even think Bohemian Rhapsody is going to get nominated for Best Picture, but it might. If it does, it's got a shot.
It's closing in on 800 million worldwide.
I think it crossed it.
Did it cross
I believe it just
800 million?
recently crossed it, which is crazy successful. But going in, I'm going to be surprised. Let's just put it this way. At this point, I feel comfortable saying this. I will be surprised if the Best Picture winner at the Academy Awards this year is not one of those three. If it's not either Green Book, Star is Born, or Roma, I will be surprised. I didn't even like Roma, but everybody else loves it, so it's clearly going to be in the top three. It's going to be interesting to see how that shakes out. All right, guys. Was that it for today? Mm-hmm. That was it. That's all the emails for today. Woo! And we've already gone really long, but you know what? It doesn't matter here on the John Campea Show. We like to take some time to take some of your live questions. We may go a little bit quick because our email segment went a bit longer. That's my fault. I apologize. So let's go over and see what's going on in the live chat board. What do we got?
All right. First one up is from Brian Esparza. 2 nail-biting games last night. Sorry, John. Go Rams.
And you know what? I'm going to let everybody know I shouldn't be airing private dirty laundry.
Uh-oh.
There is a marital crisis right now in the Campea household.
Uh-oh.
There is a marital crisis. Because this woman that I married that I thought I knew so well after the game, we were watching. She's cheering on the Patriots game and blah, 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 and all that kind of stuff. And then she gets on her laptop and orders a Rams jersey. I'm like, baby, honey, love of my life. What are you doing? She says, I'm ordering a Rams jersey. That's cute. Ironically, no, I'm going to be cheering for the Rams. Like, I don't know you. I don't know you. And there's a crisis going on, guys. There's a crisis going on. But yes, marvelous, marvelous games. How'd the Seahawks do this weekend? Oh, I forgot they weren't there. I'm sorry.
Why you got to go that way? That doesn't mean they're still not the Jedi Knights of the Pacific Northwest.
I love the Seahawks.
That my man Russell Wilson is the Obi-Wan Kenobi of the Pacific Northwest.
Yes, dead, struck down by Vader on the Death Star floor. But next year, he will rise again, and he will be a force. All right, what's next?
All right, Peter Tennant, what a great Pats game. Super Bowl bound, 37-31.
Man, I thought the Pats were going to lose to the Chargers, and my Pats won. I thought my Pats were going to lose to the Chiefs, and the Pats won. Now, people say, but John, if they're your team, how can you pick against them? Because I'm not an idiot. I am a fan. That means I cheer for my team whether they win or lose. I cheer for my team whether I think they're going to win or lose. But that doesn't mean I turn off my brain. Everything said really pointed to Chargers winning that game, so I thought the Chargers would win. So glad they didn't. Everything pointed to Chiefs winning, but I wanted the Patriots to win. I cheered for them, and they won. What a game. Cannot wait for this Super Bowl. By the way, I actually think the Rams will beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl, but I'll be cheering for them nonetheless. Win or lose, man. Win or lose. That's a real fan. All right, what's next?
All right, Ben Jesus said, I'm so pissed. Saints got screwed like Vince Monahan to Bret Hart. Saints got robbed. Big, easy screw job.
It was a big, easy screw job. Seriously, I was cheering for the Rams in that game, but seriously, the Saints got screwed. Period. End of sentence. There's no way around it. They got robbed by the NFL, and they should be in the Super Bowl. Oh, well. What's next?
All right. Denmark 95, best-selling comic series. 1 Superman, 1938, 600 mil sales. 2 Batman, 1939, 460 million sales. 3 One Piece, 1997, 555 million sales. 4 Spider-Man, 1963, 378 million in sales.
I don't know. That's 600 million units? Or
I think units, but you look at that and how many years have gone by. I mean, Superman and Batman have been around a lot longer than One Piece and Spider-Man have. So,
all right, what's next?
All right, Luke Wonderward, what's the likelihood that we'll get another Mad Max movie? I loved Fury Road, but it was nearly impossible to make.
Very low, because the mastermind behind. Why did I just freeze on his name? The director,
George Miller.
George Miller. George Miller's in the middle of a lawsuit right now with Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
Doesn't look good. And the reality is Mad Max, when you really look at it, did not actually do all that good at the box office. And so considering all the drama, if we do get another one, I think it'll be down the road and it'll be a reboot. But in this franchise, I don't think we're going to see it.
No, but I dearly love Mad Max Fury Road.
It was so
it's
good.
So good.
Furiosa?
Ugh.
Remember they were talking about doing a spin-off Furiosa movie?
know.
I was so down with that.
I know.
Charlize Theron, put her in anything. I'm going to watch that. All right, what's next?
So good. Denmark 95, One Piece is a series written and illustrated by only one guy, Elishiro Oda. It has been serialized since July 22nd, 1997, and has been collected into 91 volumes.
He goes on.
One Piece has received praise for its storytelling, art, characterization, and humor. Several volumes of the manga have broken publishing records.
And he keeps going on.
I hope some of you are joining this adventure. Don't be afraid by its length. Give it a try. And also, go Pats. Han had it coming.
I'm not familiar with this.
I'm familiar with One Piece, and he's right. It's great, but I don't care after you just said Han had it coming. I mean, I don't care about your opinion. I will say this One Piece is a terrific piece of work, but your opinion is now completely invalid.
But hey, man, this is one of the great things about these open chats is that now, Denmark, you have probably put that on the radar of a lot of people that had never heard of it before, and that's one of the great things about this. So thanks for putting that on everybody's radar, Denmark. All right, what's next?
Amin says, Oscar nominations tomorrow. You got any surprise predictions we may see? As much as everyone saying it, I don't think Black Panther is going to get a Best Picture nom.
Oh, you guys know I am firmly of the belief that while I love Black Panther, it does not deserve a Best Picture nomination. It's only the third best comic book movie of the year. Even just out of comic book movies, it's just the third best comic book movie, but it will get a Best Picture nomination. It's going to get undeservedly so, but it is going to get a Best Picture nomination. Robert, do you think it's going to get a nomination?
I think it will probably get a Best Picture nomination. And you know what? I think if it does, that's a cool thing because of what that movie represents on many different levels. So I think why not? I'm all for that. Why not?
Sure. And I think, and again, I don't think anybody's going to be disappointed because I think it will get nominated. All right, what's next?
All right, Tyler says, have you heard of the up-and-coming biopic starring Shia Labeouf called Honey Boy? He's playing his father.
This was actually a piece of news about a year ago that we talked about rather extensively. Yeah, so Shia is producing a movie about himself and his life, and he cast himself to play his own dad.
Right.
If you told me that idea, and then you said, take a guess who's doing this, I would have gone, probably Shia LaBeouf. It sounds something like crazy that he would do, which is weird. Look, Shia LaBeouf is a nut job. He's an absolute nut job. But he is just flat out one of the most, like, you want to talk about midichlorian counts? His acting talent midichlorian count is off the charts, as Obi-Wan would say. It just goes right. He's an insanely talented actor.
I agree.
But I am curious to see this, but only because, kind of like a car wreck, you can't look away. I don't think this is a wise idea, but he's doing it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. All right, what's next?
Yeah, we'll see. Juan MC flashback moment. Giants stunned Patriots in Super Bowl 42 and ended their perfect season. Go Giants! Best Super Bowl ever.
Yeah, the only way the Patriots could lose that is by some never be able to ever be replicated happen ridiculous catch off the back of a guy's helmet. It was the most thrilling, yet one of the most stupid things I had ever seen. But yeah, it made for one hell of a highlight that those of us who watched that Super Bowl will always remember that moment. Always. That's okay. Brady's got 5 rings on his hands. That'll make him get over that. That's fine. All right, what's next?
Keenan Kohler. Denis Villeneuve. I don't know that name.
Denis Villeneuve.
Villeneuve is a better Christopher Nolan.
I disagree.
Yeah, I don't agree.
I think, look, these are two of the greatest treasures we have in this business today. Christopher Nolan, Denis Villeneuve. We've been talking a lot about his Dune project coming up. I would not say that Denis Villeneuve is a better version of Christopher Nolan. I'm not necessarily saying Christopher Nolan is better than Denis Villeneuve either.
No,
they're very different directors.
Yeah, they're very different directors. And look, Arrival and Blade Runner 2049 are two of the finest big budget science fiction movies released, but so is Inception and so is Interstellar. So,
all right, what's next?
All right, James says the Star Wars films have had diminishing returns in China with each film. Do you think it will struggle to hit $2 billion again without support in China? No,
I think they can do $2 billion, but I've said this before. I don't think Star Wars Episode 9 is going to hit $2 billion. I'm not I think Avengers Endgame will probably be the highest box office movie of the year, and I'm not even 100% sure it's going to hit $2 billion. Then you got Lion King, which could threaten the number 1 spot. So I don't think it's going to hit $2 billion regardless. I really don't. But it doesn't have to have China to hit $2 billion. It does not have to have China to hit $2 billion. Really, we're all just guessing out of our asses at this point until we actually see some trailer, at least get a sense for what this movie's going to be and get a sense of excitement for it or lack of excitement for it once those trailers hit. And we're not going to know until those trailers hit. Because I'll tell you what, Star Wars Episode 9 first trailer drops, and we see Luke Skywalker come out and pull a John Wick line. Yeah, I'm thinking I'm back. And he starts killing 45 stormtroopers with, I told everybody before, I will stand in a movie theater that trailer plays in. I will drop my pants. I will piss all over everywhere and lose my mind because I will lose control of all my bodily functions. I will completely lose my mind. You put that out, it's a $3 billion film, but that's not coming.
I agree with you. Luke needs to get his due. Luke has not been, he's been jobbed. He's a jobber, like you say. I want to see Luke take his place as the rightful pantheon of great Jedis of all time.
All right, what's next?
All right, Chris Warden, 2-parter. Hey, John, you can count me as one of the other 30% because I really liked Glass. Not perfect by any stretch, but still a good time at the movies, in my opinion. Also, with Glass, Captain Marvel, Endgame, and Spider-Man Far From Home all being released this year, you could say that the 2019 is definitely the year of Samuel L. Jackson.
No, well, first of all, let's go to Samuel Jackson. No, you can't. I'm pretty much of the thing that you can't have a guy who's just in a lot of supporting characters. You got to be the lead of a couple of big movies, I think, to really call it your year. That's why I call 2018 the year of Emily Blunt. Two performances that she could legitimately get nominated for Best Actress for. In a Quiet Place and in Mary Poppins. And I didn't even like Mary Poppins, and she was awesome. And much like I didn't like Glass, but holy crap, James McAvoy. Holy crap, his performance in that movie is crazy good. So I like Endgame, supporting character. Captain Marvel, supporting character. Spider-Man Far From Home, supporting character. I just don't think you can get somebody who's a lot of big movies, but just because they're in big movies doesn't make it their year. As far as Glass and you liking it, that's awesome. I didn't. I was tremendously disappointed by it. I didn't think it was a garbage movie. Not as bad as M. Night's other bad movies, like it's nowhere near as bad as The Happening. It's nowhere near as bad as Lady in the Water. Nowhere near as bad as Avatar. It's nowhere near as bad as those. It's just a poor movie. But hey, there are people that like it, and that's awesome. I celebrate. You haven't had a chance to see Glass yet.
I have not seen it yet.
Yeah. Okay. I think you're going to be let down by it too, to be honest with you. But hey, there you go. All right. What's next?
Godzilla fan 111, with the Ghostbusters 3 controversy, do you think the film will do well? When it came to Ghostbusters 2016, I think all the drama led to it failing.
You know, to this day, I will tell you right now, the drama did not lead to it failing. That is not what led to it failing. The moment we knew this movie was probably going to flop, or sensed, maybe smelled in the air, was when they dropped the first trailer.
Yeah.
And it historically is one of the most awful trailers ever released. Nobody wanted to see that movie after that trailer dropped. It was horrible. And that trailer had nothing to do with the controversy. Now, as far as this new Ghostbusters, can it do well? Yes. This Leslie Jones thing will be forgotten soon enough. It will just be forgotten soon enough. But this Ghostbusters is going to have to stand or fall on its own.
Yeah.
They can't, because I'll tell you what, if this new Ghostbusters comes out and puts out the same piece of trash first trailer that Sony put out for that 2016 Ghostbusters, there ain't much of a better fate awaiting it later on. So it all depends on its quality. It's got to stand on its own feet. What do you think?
I completely agree. And, you know, again, I have other problems with these 2016 Ghostbusters. I thought the whole approach was too over the top. If people remember, the characters in Ghostbusters 1, Venkman was the other two characters were straight men. Everybody was pretty much a straight man.
Well,
and
I don't know. I think neither the Aykroyd character or they were. But really,
if their love of what they were doing, I mean, the fact that they were so nerdy about Tobin's Spirit Guide and all of that,
yeah.
that there was. If this makes any sense, I didn't believe the characters in the 2016 Ghostbusters as much as I believe the characters in the 1984 Ghostbusters.
I kind of did. You know what my big problem with the 2016 one was? The one that prevented me from loving the movie was every 5 seconds, the desperate reliance on Easter eggs and flashbacks. Look, guys,
Yeah,
it's that item that was in the first one. Every 5 seconds, and it kept pulling me out of the movie every time. It's like, look, you're doing your own version of Ghostbusters. Do your own damn version. Don't have to remind us every 5 seconds about the original Ghostbusters. Yes, have a Bill Murray cameo. Sure. Yes, have this or that. Throw in a couple. There had to be like 40 or 50 of them, and it kept pulling me out of the movie. Anyway, all right, what's next?
Josh Scritchen, John and Rob, check out these short horror films, Balloon and God's Kingdom. They're on YouTube channel called After, if anyone is interested.
Okay.
I'll look at that. I love short horror
Again,
films.
one of the great benefits of these live things is people can put things on people's radars. So, guys, go check those out.
Yeah.
Thanks for that recommendation, Josh. All right, what's next?
Mike Hill, will we ever get another Star Trek with the Picard crew? I really want to see what happens with Datis brother before.
To quote the great theme song of Vince McMahon, no chance in hell. Hey, look, all you got to do is go back and look at the box office trajectory of the Next Generation movies. They went like this. To finally ending up where the last one or two didn't even make $100 million worldwide. They just got to that point. So while I think we're all excited about this new Picard show, no, they're never going to go back and make another Next Generation movie.
No.
I just don't see it happening. There's just no business case for it. All right, what's next?
All right, Zelda Ninja, better movie composer, John Williams or Silvestri?
That's not even close. It's John Williams.
John Williams, yeah.
Every movie theme you can remember and whistle and hum is a John Williams theme. It doesn't matter if it's Jurassic Park or Jaws or Raiders or Superman or Star Wars or Harry Potter or whatever. Every movie tune that you can think of and actually hum along is probably a John Williams score. So I just go Williams easily.
But yeah, though this is a crazy question because Alan Silvestri has also written a lot of memorable scores.
He's
and
wonderful.
Yeah, it doesn't make him, look, John Williams is probably the GOAT.
Yeah.
But still, Silvestri is an incredible composer.
Absolutely he is. Absolutely. All right, what's next?
I'm upset. Will Glass revive Willie's career?
No. I'm not. First of all, number one, he doesn't do much. Number two, the movie makes him a side note in the movie. He's literally brushed aside. This movie really is more about Glass and the Beast. That's really This movie is mostly about them. Dunn is kind of swept off to the side. So nope, this isn't going to be the one that revives his career. Unfortunately, could have been, but I don't think it will be. All right, what's next?
Fock Brady 1 sends in a super chat.
Awesome. Thanks, Fock Brady.
And Jeffrey Taylor, hey, John and Rob, I was wondering what are some of your favorite Australian films? Mine is Two Hands starring Heath Ledger and Rose Byrne. Would recommend. First
of all, I got to try to sort out in my head which one were Australian films, period. I mean, there was that one that Hugh Jackman and Nicole Kidman did together. The kind of Western themed one.
I think was that just Australia? Was
that might have just been called Australia? Yeah, I remember enjoying that, but I can't sort them out in my head.
Well, I mean, you got to go. One of my favorite directors of all time is Peter Weir, and if you look at Peter Weir, he did Picnic at Hanging Rock, The Last Wave, Gallipoli. There's and of course the first Mad Max and Road Warrior.
Oh,
George
yeah,
Miller.
yeah.
And Peter Weir made The Cars That Ate Paris. I mean, there's Breaker Morant. I mean, there's so many great Australian films. There's an Australian biker movie called Stone. Like it's there's a great documentary about exploitation, Aussie exploitation cinema. You got to go check that out. I don't know the name of it though, but it's great.
All right, what's next?
Derek Woodron, what a Sunday. My Saints got robbed and the Patriots won. Would have loved Saints to beat Patriots in ATL.
Oh, God. But first of all, look, the nice thing about this weekend's games was, obviously I'm cheering for the Patriots, but no matter who wins, we win. Patriots versus Rams, awesome game. Patriots versus Saints, awesome game. Chiefs versus Rams, the big rematch, awesome game. Chiefs versus Saints, offensive fireworks. There was no way, there was no combination that wasn't going to end in a great-looking Super Bowl, and certainly Pats versus Rams was one of them, but it would have been great that other way around, too. Would have been awesome. All right, what's next?
James says, hey, John, pardon my bluntness, but Leslie's reaction to the new Ghostbusters news is the equivalent of a spoiled child having a temper tantrum.
It kind of is in a way. Again, I think there's a few things that mitigate it. Number one, again, is the fact that we're not just talking about some average. We're talking about a person who was on the receiving end of a lot of inexcusable abuse around this. That mitigates it a bit, I will say. I think also Ashley brought up a great valid point about how, hey, we're in this era right now where we're finally getting rid of this agenda to keep women and minorities out of lead roles. We're finally starting to end that agenda, and this kind of move, the optics of it. But again, she knows that's not the case. She knows that's not why this is happening. She's a professional in this industry. She knows the movie completely flopped financially and tanked. She knows this. And again, I just think the classic thing for her to have done is to get on Twitter and say, oh my God, the Reitmans are back in Ghostbusters. So thrilled to be a part of the legacy of this franchise. Can't wait to see what you guys are going to do. Instead, she wrote what she wrote, and it's just, as a fan of hers, that is disappointing to me. As a fan, it's disappointing to me. But we've talked about that ad nauseum. All right, what's next?
Los Angeles Refs, super chat, thank you.
Okay.
Jared's review. Out of the average movie-going audiences, whose origin story would have known more, Spider-Man, Batman, or Superman?
Although, I mean, these are three, look, these are all stories that even somebody who knows nothing about comic books, he had that's the one, the uncle, right? Batman, oh, yeah, his parents were killed, and he became Superman, yeah, his planet blew up or something. Just like people who've never seen Star Wars know that, spoiler alert, Vader is Luke's dad. People who've never seen Star Wars know that.
Right.
And that is, so, most one, I'll lean towards Superman. I think most people probably know Superman's origin more.
I think so, too, because Superman's also, been around the longest.
I'm just curious, Ashley, as somebody who's not a hardcore comic geek, which one of these things would you say, I'm most familiar with this person's origin?
That's tough. I think Spider-Man, honestly.
Yeah, there you go. There's a lot of people that Spider-Man, Batman. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are three big ones, Jared's. All right, what's next?
The other black guy says Unbreakable was ahead of its time.
Yes.
Do you think Glass was behind the times?
Yeah. Yeah, I really do. And again, I never felt my biggest word that I used a lot about the Glass reviews was pandering. Glass feels to me like it was pandering to an audience it didn't understand. Unbreakable was far more subtle in it. They would say comic book, they would say superhero, but
right.
I'm telling you what, in Glass, if you have a nickel, take a shot every time they say the word superhero in Glass. You will be smashed by midway point of this movie, absolutely hammered. But no, I think I've never thought of it in those terms before, but I think that's actually quite an accurate way. But again, remember, that's just my perspective. There are people out there who quite like the movie, so listen to both sides. All right, what's next?
Alex Javeski, fellow Canadian, don't like Cineplex either. I go to Landmark, leather recliners, and reserved seating for no extra charge.
Yeah, I still got to do this video. My home country, of course, they have basically...
Where are you from?
I'm from this little place. Basically, there's a monopoly in Canada of movie theater chains. It's called Cineplex. There used to be two. There was Cineplex Odeon and Famous Players. And eventually, those kind of merged. Now you go. Now, there are a few smaller little chains, but essentially, if you want to go to the movies in Canada, for most Canadians, your only choice is to go to a Cineplex. And their business model right now is atrocious. And I have been a big fan of Cineplex for a long time. Here's a great example. They try to force you to go to the more expensive 3D screenings. I wanted to take my mom to see Aquaman. Look it up. 7 screenings. One time period. 4:45 in the afternoon when everybody's still at work.
Right.
Did they offer a non-3D screening? All the rest of them were 3D screenings. And if I wanted to reserve get a reserve seat in one, it was going to cost me $8 extra. Screw that. And I, as a fan, I was really disappointed by that. But anyway, thanks for sharing that, Alex. All right, what's next?
Snake Jerusalem, at $412 million, did Bumblebee win its uphill battle?
Oh, yeah, it did. Yeah, it made more money than I thought it could, to be quite frank with you. It made more money than I thought it could, and good on it because it's a good little movie, and it deserves that success. All right, what's next?
Just to Tasty Good, who is your pick to win Best Actor at Oscars?
I mean, look, you got a couple of heavyweight competitors here. Obviously, Bradley Cooper's going to have a lot of steam going in there. I don't think I would give it to him. Viggo Mortensen is a very viable option at this point. A guy that I'm not even sure if he's going to get a nomination, but is handsome Hawke, is Ethan Hawke for First Reformed. He was stupid good in that movie, like ridiculously good in that movie.
And he's already won a few acting awards for that
for it along the way. So, I mean, that could be one of them. Right now, if I had to cast my vote, it's going to be tight. I really don't have a prediction. Do you got a prediction at this point?
No, I mean, it's rough. I think it's a pretty wide open category right now. I mean, there's a lot of great performances. It'll be interesting to see who gets it. I mean, obviously, Green Book, you've got 2.
Yeah.
And who knows? I never know. It always surprises me.
All right, what's next?
All right, Murray Breich says, so the heated recliners at AMC Theater I went to only heated your back when you lay back. By the way, it's 9 degrees here in NYC today.
Yeah, I think Murray mentioned it to me on my open mic show this weekend, that something that the AMC theaters at a couple of the theaters in New York have that I've never even heard of, which is not only they have the leather recliners, they are heated leather recliners,
cool.
Which is clearly something we don't need in Los Angeles.
Right.
If anything, we need AC running. We need water-cooled things, but I think that is spectacular. I think that's awesome stuff.
Yeah.
All right, what's next?
All right, John DeBenedict. In my opinion, Leslie's comments do nothing more than add to the current outrage culture. God forbid anybody do anything without someone having an issue over it.
I would have no issue with this. Just to reiterate, if Leslie would have a valid point to make had Ghostbusters broken even or had Ghostbusters made a little bit of money. But the fact, it's not a little detail in the story. The fact that it was a financial flop is the headline here. And yeah, it just... To me, it just reeks a little bit of entitlement that I think actors, quite frankly, and I love actors. You guys know some of my best friends are actors. But I think there are some actors. You made a great observation on the show the other day, Robert. Out of most of the high-profile people, the people who work the least on a movie are actors. Right. And yet they're the ones who seem quite sometimes... like in this case, seem to be the ones who feel like they're entitled to something here, that the world owes them, the studio owes them. And this doesn't help that. This doesn't help that image. And I don't think, I'll tell you what, I have a feeling her fellow cast members of that 2016 Ghostbusters are probably not too happy about her statements.
No, I'm sure they're not.
But that's just my guess at this point. All right, what's next?
Chris Warden, I really don't know how some people can say Spider-Man, Spider-Verse, and Bumblebee are flops. As it stands right now, Spidey has made over $320 million on a $90 million budget.
Yep, guess what? Both Bumblebee and, by the way, I did not think either Bumblebee or Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which I thought was a bad idea, by the way, and I love that movie, and I thought it was a bad idea. I didn't think either one of them could break even. But they have both broken even. Remind anybody who tells you that either Bumblebee or Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse are flops that, guess what? By definition, if you make money, you're not a flop. Both of these movies made money. Here's a funny thing, too. We're all talking about Aquaman. Fine. But the other big three that opened in that window, between Mary Poppins, Bumblebee, and Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, they account for $1 billion worth of box office. $1 billion worth of box office between those films just opened in that one little window.
Yeah.
Crazy. Those movies are not flopping.
And those two movies, Bumblebee and Into the Spider-Verse, will be talked about amongst genre fans and movie fans for a long time.
Yeah.
They will resonate in our secondary markets for years to come.
All right, what's next?
Sorry, his comment continued. He said, putting them both in the profit territory.
Yes.
So if my math is correct, you can certainly say they've underperformed, but certainly not flops.
No way. I think there was a strong argument to be made that both of these would lose money. The fact that they both cleared even and actually made money, I don't think you can make a rational argument that they underperformed, because I don't know anybody that thought Bumblebee was going to make $600 million at the box office.
Right.
I don't know anybody that honestly thought Spider-Man and the Spider-Verse would make $500 million at the box office. Maybe some people, but they were probably a little bit of delusions of grandeur. I don't think you can say they underperformed either. The fact that they were profitable, I think, is insanely crazy. All right, what's next?
Andrew Lee says, I compare Black Widow, Hawkeye, and even Hulk to seasoning. As essential as it is to the quality of a dish, you shouldn't make a meal out of salt.
Andrew, you are singing to the choir, my friend. You're preaching to the choir. I've thought for a long time that, I've said for a long time, look, I love the Avengers, but Hawkeye and Black Widow, I don't see them as leading a movie. I see them as incredible ingredients and characters supporting other movies. Absolutely. Like Black Widow in Winter Soldier. Winter Soldier is not as good as it is if it wasn't for Black Widow's presence, or any of the movies she's been in. Hawkeye was great in that original Avengers, but I just see Hawkeye and Widow as supporting characters. Obviously, you can't do a Hulk movie because of the rights issues between them and Universal, so you can't do a standalone Hulk movie. But I've never been interested in either a standalone Black Widow movie or a standalone Hawkeye movie, but we're getting a Black Widow one. And there are people at this table who are very excited about it.
Look, again, I think you can tell a story about anybody if you've got a great story to tell and a great script and great filmmakers.
So Philippe is the sentient dancing microphone. Yes, and I agree. You can make a great movie out of anything. If you can make a great movie out of Lego, then you can make a great movie out of anything if you do it right and execute. I'm just saying it's not a character I was wanting to see, but
Sure.
But we'll see. Maybe they'll do that, and then they'll do a Hawkeye movie. Maybe these will be the two best movies in the MCU.
An Optimus Prime Bumblebee movie could be the lethal weapon of the franchise.
It could.
And that character interplay could be hilarious.
It could. All right, what's next?
All right, Zach Bartram says, do you think TFA could get a 4K Blu release before 9, or do you think they'll wait and do a 4K trilogy release?
I'm not. Well, actually, I was about to lie. I did just recently buy a 4K TV, but just because it was the TV that was on sale. My main television in my living room, where I have my little home theater stuff, is not a 4K TV. The human eye can't see in 4K after a certain distance, so I don't follow 4K, so I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I just would have assumed there already was a 4K release.
No, they released Last Jedi in 4K and Solo in 4K.
But not The Force Awakens.
Not The Force Awakens. I'm sure they'll go. I have the special edition 3D. I have the 3D Force Awakens.
Of course you do.
I think they're going to go back and probably do a box set of all three in 4K if they don't do a 4K release before Episode 9 comes out. When Episode 9 finally is released, they'll do a box set.
Actually, I'm just curious. Do you, like with your home stuff, do you have a DVD player, Blu-ray? Do you do 4K? Or you're all digital? You're all streaming?
Yeah, all streaming.
See, me too.
All streaming all the time.
Me too. I'm
Yep.
all.
Sorry, Robert.
I'm the old man at the table. I'm holding on to my physical media.
Well,
You pry it out of my cold, dead fingers.
You know, I do have a DVD player and I do have a record player for music, and I use that all the time. But I just
You hipster. Don't talk to me
vinyl's
about
great.
vinyl.
Whatever, it's great. It sounds good. But yeah, I'm digital streaming.
There's only one kind of vinyl I like. That's these guys right here. That's my pops. Those are the only vinyl I have. Although I guess Anne's got a record player too. Actually, she's got a great Star Wars record player.
Because it sounds good. All right.
All right, what's next?
Murray says, here's an observation for you. It's both NY and LA championship again. The other was 2018 World Series.
First of all, New England Patriots are not New York. Don't say that to anybody from Boston, man. Never say that from anybody from the Boston area. It is not New York and LA again. So no. All right, what's next?
Godzilla Loves Campea. Bourne versus 007. Who will win the fight?
007 is the better, longer-lasting, all-round franchise, but they set it up that Bourne is a world elite assassin, killer, combat artist. James is tough, but he'll beat you with his mind. He'll beat you
Right.
that way. So in a straight up throw them in a cage and make them fight, I'm guessing Bourne wins.
Probably, and Bourne's probably a little younger.
Yeah.
You know, Bond is, but Bond was, a military commander. He was a naval officer.
Yeah. You know who else was older? Cowboy Cerrone. He was older. Good fight on Saturday, man. He kicked that dude's ass. It was great. All right, what's next?
All right, Imad Abdelatif. So, do you ever find yourself focusing too much on the music score in a movie? To me, it can sometimes make or break a scene.
No, the best scores are the ones that quite often you won't even notice because they enhance and blend in and soak into and marinate the scene perfectly, and sometimes they really stand out in a good way. I'll be honest with you, I don't focus on the score too much when I'm watching a film if the score is really doing its job.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm a huge movie score fan and collector, but there are very few movies that I've ever seen where the score I thought was wrong. One of the first that comes to mind is the Never Say Never Again, the Michel Legrand score for Never Say Never Again, the Bond film. Yeesh.
All right, what's next?
Lyle, Navin, does Robert or Ashley have a trinity of worst movies?
Well, just so you guys say, I say the unholy trinity of the all-time worst wide-release Hollywood big pictures are, in no particular order, Highlander 2, The Quickening, Catwoman with Halle Berry, and Battlefield Earth with John Travolta. That is my unholy trinity. Do you have any films that would rank on an unholy trinity?
That's a tough question because, I try and find something to like about all movies because they're so hard to make. The only movie I've ever walked out of in my life was Shock Treatment, which is the sort of pseudo-sequel to the Rocky Horror Picture Show. That was the only movie that comes to mind that I...
What about you, Ashley? You got some you truly hate, like movies you truly
I
hate.
hated Phone Booth, right?
Yeah.
God, what? I was like, just leave. I understand, but I was like, this, I cannot. And then I remember hating AI, right? With it was like Spielberg. Just hate. I think that was the only movie I ever walked out of. I've never walked out of a movie, and I just left that one. I don't know.
AI was one of those films that was like Watchmen, where there are people who love that film and people who hate that film. And AI was one of those films as well. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of down the middle on both.
I would watch
it
again. I just at the time, something just was really rubbing me the wrong way. And I was like, I got to get out of here.
All right, let's just do a couple more here and we'll wrap it up.
All right, David Coca says, greetings from the Hammer. John, do you think your Incredible Hulk character survived the snapping in the Marvel universe?
Well, first of all, for those of you who don't know, the Hammer is Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. And I was in that Incredible Hulk movie. Did my character survive? I'm not supposed to say anything, but I may be like the pivotal thing that turns the tide in Endgame. I shouldn't say anything else. I'm just going to leave it at that. Hello, David from the Hammer, by the way. How's the weather over there at the Jackson Square Mall in Lime Ridge? All right, what's next?
Nathan Oswald, the biggest suspense of disbelief is in Battlefield Earth, cavemen flying fighter jets.
Dude, there is so much in Battlefield Earth that is ridiculous that there's no even point talking about. That movie is so bad. That movie is so ridiculously bad. And I got a buddy that worked on the effects. And I remember I was working in a visual effects company at the time, and we were so excited to go see Battlefield Earth. True story. If you guys watched me on the show for a while, you've heard the story. But opening weekend for Battlefield Earth comes. We're visual effects, and we love this stuff. Can't wait to see this movie. Go to a packed theater in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Canada. Packed theater. And you know when a movie ends and the credits start to roll, and slowly people start to rustle around, getting their coats or getting their stuff, picking up and start moving their way. When Battlefield Earth ended, nobody moved. The whole theater sat still like deer caught in headlights. And there was about 5 to 6 seconds of no movement and awkward silence as the credits started to roll. And then you hear this voice, some guy from like the front row of the theater yell, "What the hell was that?" And the entire theater erupted into laughter. And there's so much wrong with that movie,
now,
Nathan.
If memory serves, and I don't mean this as a slight, isn't Battlefield Earth, wasn't it directed by a Canadian?
I know. I don't think it was a Canadian. It was the guy who was the assistant director on The Phantom Menace.
But he also directed a movie called The Sender, I think, if memory serves. You'll have to correct me.
I just remember he was a second unit director on one of the prequels. But I do not believe he was Canadian. I could be wrong.
I thought he
about that.
directed a movie called The Sender, which is, I think, a Canadian. It's a psychic horror thriller.
I haven't seen it. All right, let's
80s.
take 2 more.
All right, Romy J. Royster. Who the hell is this guy? Venom talking to RMB.
I love that line. That is a great line in Venom, by the way. Who the hell is this guy?
What did I say? Did I say something? Yes.
I'm not. Yeah. Robert, why? What did Robert say? Anyway.
Probably a lot.
Probably a lot. All right. Last question. Oh, you know what? Let's get down to HV39's question. So let's take all the remaining questions up to HV39.
Okay, perfect. The Delusionator. Hey, John, if you could snap a finger and make one thing happen, Star Wars prequels are good, get $1 million, or Iron Spider suit.
I'm just going to interrupt you right there. $1 million, obviously. What the hell do I care if people like or don't like the prequels, or if people like or don't like the Spider? Look, I will sing how great the Iron Spider suit is if you give me $1 million. $1 million, easy. You, Rob?
$1 million.
Yes, of course. Let's not be silly. Let's not get ahead of ourselves here. Okay, what's next?
Murray says, hey, Ashley, who are you rooting for in the Super Bowl? I mean, I'm from
Yeah,
Philly,
I'm doing
so
it. Before you get there,
Eagles, but
before you
I
get
will-
there,
all right.
before you answer,
You know my answer.
I just want you to know in advance that, wink, wink, your job's not on the line here. Wink, wink.
Yeah, so
Your job's totally not on the line here with this answer.
I have to be true to myself
Oh,
and say, obviously, the Rams. Come on.
Oh,
Yay.
Come on. But I don't really give a shit. I mean, I'm from Philly, and my Eagles are out, so I don't care.
Hey, everybody, make sure, she's going to give her Instagram account at the end. Make sure you guys write to her. Tell her how much you did enjoy having her on the show, that it was nice having her while it lasted.
Hey.
Okay, let's
But
move
also
on.
tell her justice for Han.
All right,
Nice.
let's go.
All right, HV3 9000. Last question. Yes, Saints were screwed on that non-PI pass interference, but can really feel bad for a coach that allowed Bounty Gate to happen. One bad call doesn't make for them stealing the 2009 championship away from the Vikings.
Okay, HV3, hold on, it's time out here. Get that garbage out of here. Get that garbage out. Listen,
Bill Hunt's smiling.
well,
somewhere.
can we feel bad for this one in 1943? Like, we're talking about that game. Something horrible happened to the sport. I don't care whether you like the team or don't like the team or like the coaches involved or don't. Doesn't matter. It was bad for the game. And I was cheering. Like, don't get me wrong. I'd love to see Drew Brees get to the Super Bowl again, too. But, I'm a little bit of homer in there. I live in Los Angeles, so I want to see the Rams there. But that was bad for the sport.
Yes.
It was bad. It's a black eye on the game. And there's going to be a lot of people in this country now that when we get to Super Bowl, it's going to be the Patriots versus the asterisks Rams, who actually lost that game, but were handed. I mean, who cares who the team was? It's bad for the sport and it's bad for the game. Get this. Well, in 2009, what does that have to do with it? It has nothing to do with it. It does not affect or have any kind of relevance on this whatsoever. So I can get going on sports stuff. Pretty fascinating. It was bad for the game. And I was listening to, I almost called it Mike and Mike. Mike and Mike no longer exist, but on Golic and Wingo on ESPN. And they made that point really, really well. It's just that this was bad for the game. It was bad for the sport. It was so blatant because it wasn't just a blatant pass interference, and it wasn't just a blatant unnecessary roughness. It was also a blatant helmet-to-helmet hit on a receiver. All these things are tremendously illegal in the game, and they all happened at once, and they called none of it, and they were robbed of a guaranteed win. And that's the only message to take away from here. So it was bad for the game. Yay! My Rams, the Rams are in the Super Bowl. Yay. But I just not that way.
But you'd want to have a definitive answer. Now the victory, and even if they win the Super Bowl, everyone will say 20 years from now, yeah, but look at this. And they'll play that clip.
Yeah.
And they'll say that the Saints should have been there and not.
But now, look, at the same time, sports fans, including me and everybody else, it's done. Got to get over it. Right. That includes me. Got to get over it. It happened. It's done. The NFL called the coach and said, "We screwed you guys over. We blew it. It was a thing. But what are they supposed to do about it? You can't go back and change it. So we just got to get over it. And that includes all my friends who are in New Orleans. It sucks. They got jobbed, but it happened, and it wasn't on purpose."
Right.
And we just got to get over it and move on. Just got to get over it and move on.
We were saying, were the refs like on Instagram during, like, they're like, hey, I'm on the field, guys. Like, I'm like, what? Are they taking selfies? What's happening right now? Like, they're just not paying attention.
I'm at the NFC Championship.
Woo!
Yo, click. Oh, wait, what?
Yeah.
Like, I just don't know what happened there. All right, guys. That will do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you so much for being here. Listen, guys, We appreciate you guys being here so much. Those of you who participate in the chats, those of you guys watch the videos afterwards, comment in the comment section. Remember, when you jump down to the comment section and talk to each other, keep in mind you're talking to fellow film fans. So go in there, have some great discussion, have some good debate, but just remember you're debating with somebody who is a fellow film fan with you along the way. Ray apparently is breaking things over there. I want to thank, of course, the people who are here with me. First of all, the one and the only, the great Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, when is your next Skinamax feature? Because I want to see that.
Well, you can still watch Femme Fatales, the show, whenever you want. I believe it's streaming on Amazon. But you can find me on Instagram at RM Burnett, find me on Twitter at BurnettRM, or find me on The Burnettwork on YouTube, my YouTube channel, or theburnettwork.net, my website. I will be on later today talking about the Firefest documentaries, both of them.
And, of course, Ashley Whalen. Ashley, where can people find you?
I am on Instagram at Ashley Whalen. It's just ASHLEYYWHELAN, and Twitter, AshAttack1.
And you guys, of course, can find me on Twitter and on Instagram simply at John Campea. Special thanks to fact checker Jonathan DeRay over there, and to all of you guys once again. And hey, listen, for those of you who are Patreon supporters of ours, first of all, thank you for being Patreon supporters. But don't forget, we've got a new podcast. Our first episode went up on Friday called The John Campea Show Best of the Week with myself, Robert, and Ashley were on it as well. And that is there for you on the Patreon page. Make sure you guys go and check that out. That'll do it for us, guys. Thanks a lot for joining us. My name's John Campea, and until the next video, bye-bye.